serious problems to solve, and we need serious people to solve them.
Well, look what just showed up, a serious person to solve our serious problems. We're always thrilled to welcome Chairman Tom Perez of the Democratic Party live in studio. Look at that. We are fancy, man.
Well, great to be back with you.
Great to have
and
you.
your two dogs.
Yeah. they don't recognize power. They're just like, it's someone else to get white fur on.
That's right.
Chairman, I know we have so much to talk about, but I feel it's my duty. I've been talking about this all morning, and you just brought it up, impeachment, off air here. We have what, Travis, 6 million listeners. We have, we get to hear probably more, like you do, though. You go all over the country and you hear from people. So you know that, what is the latest polling? Maybe 70% of Democrats want impeachment.
But it's more like 41% total.
Right. Because
both parties.
Yes. Right. So, okay. Obviously, our front runners, I feel like, that are really rocketing, Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris. I know we're all vote blue no matter who, but they're speaking very loudly about impeachment and very forcefully, and I feel like that is part of it. I'm very concerned, and I want to know your thoughts, obviously, about depressing our base. And that to me is the split. If our front runners and a vast majority of Democrats around the country want impeachment, and we don't do it, and we don't use the power that you, by the way, work so hard for, and I give you all the credit, but also a bunch of Twitter activists. You know what I mean? There's all of us that work so hard for this blue wave, and we want a bigger one, right, in 2020, not a smaller one. What are your thoughts on all this? I just sense a ton of frustration. I got so many emails, Chairman. This is the only thing they want me to talk to you about, and I know that's not all you want to talk about, but
I'm happy to talk about anything your listeners are interested in, because that's what this is all about.
Right.
I spent over a dozen years of my career at the Justice Department. I have prosecuted obstruction cases. I know those statutes very well. And here are a couple things that are very clear to me. The culture of corruption surrounding this administration is rampant. And there are so many issues that need to be investigated.
Yeah.
And
that I have sympathy for. Your inbox has got to be.
No, again, I 18 United States Code Section 1512, the obstruction statutes. I know them well. I use them. I prosecuted a lot of corrupt officials. And here's what I observe here. The House has an absolute constitutional responsibility to conduct all of the investigation, to gather the facts. I hear from people all the time, you need to impeach now. The most frequently asked question I used to get when I was doing these investigations is, when are you going to indict? When are you going to indict? And I frequently encountered public officials who were stonewalling us. Yeah. And you have to gather the facts. If you want to get it done right, you have to gather the facts. You can't do the ready, fire, aim. You've got to go ready, aim, fire. And for me, the reason I talked about my own experience doing obstruction cases is, you have a statute of limitations that is a minimum of 5 years. And what I actually think, if our goal is to hold this president accountable, one thing is clear. The only way to remove him is at the ballot box on November the 3rd of 2020. What we have to do now is gather the facts, gather the evidence, accumulate it, defeat him at the ballot box, put a Democrat in the White House, have Democrats controlling the Senate, and then have a special counsel. And now this president will not be immune from being prosecuted for his wrongdoing. That, to me, is the best way to
Chairman,
move forward.
And I have utmost respect for you, as I do for Speaker Pelosi and Chairman Schiff, who's my personal congressman. There are people, whether it's Lawrence Tribe or Joe Weinbanks or people like that are not bomb throwers, Chairman, that have just made a very strong case on this show and others. There is a constitutional and moral imperative to use the full powers of impeachment, the full powers that I think many people gave Democrats to put a check and balance. And I understand it might be a process, and Chairman Nadler seemed to say these subpoenas and Mueller testifying is part of the road to decide about an impeachment inquiry.
You have to gather we all have I have a very strong prosecutor's instinct that this president has engaged in an array of misconduct that could very well be absolutely criminally prosecutable, along with people around him. But I never went into court on a hunch. I went into a court with facts, and I had to gather the facts. And Richie Neal, I think that's a great example. He has methodically gone through, and for your listeners, he's the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee
to get
who
Trump's
is trying
taxes.
to get Trump's taxes, and he's doing it the right way. That issue is going to go to the Supreme Court very possibly, and because of the methodical way in which he's handled it, we are going to be in a much better position to win that case and get the records. If you try to truncate the process and go fast because we have a visceral feeling about it, we are likely to get in a situation where we don't get the outcome we need.
So let me, because these people have way more credibility than I do, but Professor Tribe, who I'm sure you've read his writings on this, Watergate prosecutor Jill Wine-Banks, I guess they've made a very strong case that obviously it expedites and gives you more the ultimate power if you declare an impeachment inquiry. And I think you probably also read Professor Tribe's thing that I would respectfully disagree with you that I don't know that that's the only way to remove Trump. And that's what Jill Wine-Banks just said to us yesterday, and Lawrence Tribe has said to us, that, as you know, what is it, 3% of the American people have read the Mueller report? So what they're saying is make the case. The needle didn't move on Nixon until you made the case to the American people. And then there's also, when you say, he's just going to get exonerated in the Senate, you don't know what's going to happen when you make the case with the evidence. You know what's going to happen with the polling. Right? I mean, if one thing you know is cowardice on their side when they see that Trump's going to go down and take the entire party with them. How do you know he's not? That one option isn't he's forced to resign, or you use Tribe's off ramp, right? And go, you don't have to send it to the Senate. Do a sense of the House. I'm just saying. I'm making smarter people's cases to you. This is not my case.
I very much understand the arc of Watergate. People talk about Howard Baker as the kind of the hero of Watergate. Howard Baker at the outset of Watergate was a Richard Nixon enabler.
Right. And
over the course of a few years, that's how he finally got religion, so to speak.
Yeah.
If the suggestion is that Mitch McConnell is going to view the evidence and have a moment in 2020.
I say good. Put him on the record. If you are a lawyer,
he's already on the record.
You're a lawyer.
You've seen
the 10.
I mean, the party of Lincoln is dead. That's,
no, I know.
That's the
but you've seen
thing.
the 10 counts of obstruction. I say put them on the record as saying they're okay with this. This is, I feel like it would be great for us politically.
See, I think we're setting up an either or. And again, the prosecutor in me.
Yeah.
I have to gather the facts. I can't tell you the number of times. I prosecuted some very high-profile public officials in my tenure, and I was always getting pressure to do it tomorrow. And I always resisted that pressure because I had a long-term view of this. And I think it is incredibly important what Chairman Neal and Chairman Nadler and Chairman Cummings and Chairman Schiff are doing. And the way they're doing it, it is incredibly frustrating. The extent of obstruction and foot dragging,
absolutely, and ongoing.
But we have to use the court system as they are doing. We've won. We're winning every case we are.
I hear you, Chairman. One last thing on this, because I know you have so much else you want to talk about. But I think my listeners' concern is, they feel like this needs to be part of our 2020 strategy, that we make the case to the American people based on, what's in the Mueller report. And then our candidates don't have to talk about it. They can talk about all their great plans, healthcare, immigration reform, whatever. I think my listeners are really concerned that we're going to have a free and fair election if we're just counting on the election between what's happening with gerrymandering, voter suppression, Mitch McConnell saying I'm not going to do anything about Russian election interference. How can you, because I don't want to be part of depressing turnout. I want to help you get the blue tsunamis.
Well, I think the most important thing we have to do, and the reason I've spent my entire week talking about healthcare, because in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, Obamacare once again is on the chopping block.
Yeah.
And I was in Arizona the other day, and I heard compelling stories of people who are going to bed at night with a absolute pit in their stomach.
Yeah, he
father
just punted
of
on
a 3-year-old.
he just punted on prescription drug prices yesterday.
And Stephanie, we won at scale in 2018 because we had a unity of purpose everywhere around the country. We were talking about health care. We were talking about the fact that Democrats are fighting to make sure that if you have a pre-existing condition, you can keep your health care. Democrats are fighting to bring down the cost of prescription drugs. Democrats are fighting to make sure that if you work a full-time job, you can feed your family. And Speaker Pelosi has acted on that. The bills that have been passed in the Congress to protect coverage for people with pre-existing conditions, bring down the cost of prescription drugs, protect people in the workplace. And the challenge that we have is, as I travel around the country, a lot of people are unaware of what Speaker Pelosi and Democrats have done on health care.
Yeah.
And we've got to make sure that we're reminding people that we are the party that are fighting for the issues that matter. We've looked at the last 26 polls asking people what's the most important issue, and every single one of those polls, I think except one, healthcare was the number one issue. And the poll that wasn't, the question was poorly asked. So I mean, has to continue to be a singular focus for us.
Totally agree, Chairman. Josh Marshall tweeted, I just wanted to get your take. This goes to kind of part of what I was saying. Half the GOP policy agenda now turns on creating structural reforms largely enforced by activist right-wing judges to allow a shrinking GOP electorate to hold power while failing to win majority votes. Voter ID, voter purges, partisan gerrymandering, citizen-only districts, etc. That's what I'm just saying is how can we and how are we fighting against their massive voter suppression?
Well, again, the solution to every challenge we have is we have to win elections, and we did that at scale. Virginia and New Jersey taught us that we could win again in 2017. Alabama taught us we could win everywhere. 2018, we won at scale. We helped flip 8 state legislatures. The last time we won this many governor's seats, flipping from red to blue, before 2018 was 1982. We saw what happened in the U.S. House, and we did that because we had a unity of purpose. We had a singular focus on making sure that people's number one issues, the Democrats were on their side. White suburban women, women of color, young voters, first-time voters, people came out. And they came out in force because they understood we are the party that's fighting for health care. We're the party that's fighting for an economy that works for everyone. We're the party that believes in climate change is real. And so
not enforced raking, I'm guessing. Chairman, one last plea, just because I think what would energize our base, in addition to all our great stances on the issues, is impeachment. Katie Porter, who's a rock star, right, out here in a very conservative district in Orange County, Scully tweets, wow, Katie Porter outraises more than 36 vulnerable freshman House Democrats for the second quarter, according to sources. Seems supporting an impeachment inquiry has paid off for Porter. That would be my question, too, is what do you do when you have other rock stars like Elizabeth Warren, like Kamala Harris, among others, making such a forceful moral case for impeachment, and then our party not do that? That's the split that I'm worried about.
Again, I think we're in this either or thing.
Right.
There's aggressive oversight being done by the House right now. They are building a record. They are building a record of absolute, wholesale violations by not only this president but people around him, and so that's what they have to continue to do. That's what Chairman Neal and others are absolutely doing. So do
you feel like Mueller testifying? Do you think that's going to be any sort of turning point?
That's been postponed by a week. It was just
What?
announced.
Why?
Sorry, I just saw it. Just came up on Politico. I literally just printed it out for you.
Why?
I'm sure the administration is trying to wreak trouble. I know that he was supposed to have other people, some of the top prosecutors on his team were supposed to testify, and I think they're going to invoke privilege on that. Mueller absolutely has to testify. And by the way, one of the first questions, if I were a member of Congress, that I'd be asking Mueller is, tell me about the case that you indicted in which there is an allegation that foreign interference was targeting roughly 500,000 voters in an unnamed state to affect an election. I mean, we need. he has information about election interference, and we need to know specifics.
Yep.
We are at war right now. It's a cyber war.
Yeah.
Our commander-in-chief is compromised, and that's why we're working so hard at the DNC and with our partners in the ecosystem.
I agree with
to
all the
make sure.
candidates that just said what's the biggest national security threat to the United States, and they all
Donald
said
Trump.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So we'll delve into the details of this, but I mean, more of the same to me. More obstruction, more.
And that's why.
You know what?
Mueller
Barr was calling. This is what Schiff said yesterday. Is Barr was calling our bluff that he didn't think we would subpoena Mueller, and that's why he's like, oh, of course, I have no problem with him testifying because he thought Mueller won't go and we won't, right?
Mueller has to testify,
Yeah.
and Mueller will testify.
Yeah.
And
Let me
Mueller needs to answer questions beyond the. I'm just talking about the four corners of my report.
Chairman, I want to say, because I always appreciate you coming in. We say this all the time, Travis, right? Our interest is in uniting the party, not causing division. So I understand, and I've said this to people, this is not just Nancy Pelosi. She doesn't have the votes. It's everybody. We're at, 79 House Democrats for impeachment of 235. So I think we'll let you answer that when we get back, because I think it's a longer question as to because we've been urging people, call respectfully, urgently but respectfully, call your representatives if that's what you want. So, either get Nancy Pelosi the votes or urge her to show leadership and bring the caucus toward impeachment if that's what you want. But let's get into that with Chairman Perez and all the other amazing horrors that we are currently dealing with in the Trump administration on the Stephanie Miller Show.
And we'll be right back.
This is the Stephanie Miller Show. Chairman Tom Perez and I just talking about the New York Times piece about how the Twitter world is not necessarily
it's
the
not
same.
representative of the Democratic base.
And I get that. I'm sympathetic to Speaker Pelosi saying you can't legislate on Twitter. However, it's how the president communicates. It's part of our social media strategy that we help bring people around on our. So I would say that in terms of the polling on impeachment, Chairman, it isn't just the Twitterverse. It's 70% of Democrats. And I get all of your arguments, but I would ask you, so we have the polling on that, and then we have, what are we, 79, as I was saying, Democrats for impeachments out of 235. What is your take on that? And because obviously more and more are coming along, but what is your take on where we are with that and why?
Where we are, again, and at risk of being redundant, where we are is we need to continue to gather the evidence, to subpoena documents, to subpoena witnesses. We have Mueller apparently delayed by a week, but Mueller has to come in. That's an absolutely critical part of this of this process, and it's never occurs as fast as you want it. I never had a case that I brought that happened with the speed that I was hoping, because every time I had a case, I had some folks who were trying to foot drag, and again, I admire what these chairs are doing to methodically go into court. We're going to create some good case law that's going to really vindicate the authority of Congress to engage in its oversight. And with that, I think we're going to be able to make a very compelling case to the American people, because again,
that's the important thing. However we do that, Chairman, I agree with you that people in the middle of the country, they're worried that they have, as Kamala said on TV last night, that their soybeans are rotting in their bins because of the stupid trade war. But what my point is, let the House do their job and make the case against this criminal president with impeachment, and our candidates don't have to talk about it. I think it's a double-pronged strategy that I'm just urging, but who am I?
You're Stephanie
I'm
Miller.
just a girl in a baseball cap in my basement,
But we also need our
pestering the chairman of the Democratic Party.
Showing that the Senate's not acting on this stuff, too. That we need the House pushing forward legislation so we can show that the Senate's not acting.
Yeah.
Well, and we also, the challenge that I have in my travels right now is that you go to Wisconsin. Wisconsin leads the country in dairy farmers' bankruptcies.
Yes.
And the reason is because of the tariffs. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. They want to know who's going to help me. In Pennsylvania, opioid addicted, a family struggling with opioid addiction. Am I going to keep my health care?
I just want to say my dad, former RNC chair in heaven, is like, Tom, I feel your pain, man. She pesters you. She pesters you. Chairman Perez, great work
Always
as
good
always.
to be with you.
We're here to help. Vote blue no matter who. Chairman Tom
Amen.
Perez.
Fall in love.